over the last 10 years, the rules of capital are now defining more so the rules of entrepreneurship, certainly in terms of venture-backed entrepreneurship. AI doesn't work the same way every time. AI doesn't behave like software. Unless you've really narrowed the use case, the maturity level of AI is almost accelerating kind of past the maturity level of enterprise to accept AI. We have a lot of anxiety about AI inside the workforce. We don't have anxiety about software, but AI is not software yet.
Just give me the 30-second elevator pitch on Craig.
A 5-time founder CEO, and this is their only time, this current company section where I'm the CEO and not the founder. So I was brought in as a hired gun CEO, if you will. So, after the first 5 years of my career, I realized I did not want to work for anybody else. I felt I was always the smartest guy in the room. Not true. I just thought that, and would prefer to work for myself, kind of make my own mistakes. So pretty much after that first 5 years, started my first company, and then came here to California for business school, stayed obviously afterwards. And I've had this roller coaster life of hits and strikeouts, and I've lived, I think, I've not lived the Silicon Valley dream. If you think about how the dream machine works here, no $1 billion exit, no unicorns, no zero to $100 million in revenue in 5 years, none of that. Like really, grinding it out, getting some exits. My last company took 12 years to get to $100 million in revenue, and I was fired as CEO along the way, but we sold the company and I got an exit. So just, I say this, it's maybe a little bit Canadian self-deprecating, but only in Silicon Valley, I think, can you sell companies in total valuing to $250 million and feel like a failure. And I don't feel like a failure, but there are moments where like, no, whatever, like, again, you're not, you didn't get.
So in terms of the Silicon Valley dream, do you feel like that is something worth pursuing, or is it a myth
it's a
that's
bust.
just,
It's a bust.
yeah?
It's a bust. Yeah, it's a dream machine. It works for investors. It works occasionally for the entrepreneur. And I think what I don't like about it today is entrepreneurs are now playing by investors' rules, and it should be the reverse, right? The investor community should be support, frankly, right? Like lawyers and like accountants and others. Obviously, they bring capitals. They bring more than other service firms. But Silicon Valley was sort of, I think, born with this idea of investors finding great entrepreneurs, partnering with them, and kind of helping them build their business. I do think over the last 10 years, the rules of capital are now defining more so the rules of entrepreneurship, certainly in terms of venture-backed entrepreneurship, meaning, raise a lot of money, find out fast, get a huge hit. So investors are acting rationally and doing the right thing because they have large funds. They need to put that capital to work pretty quickly. They don't want a lot of partners and a lot of staff. They want their own firms to be quite small. So they want bigger bets, less of them in a way. And they want to find out fast. They don't want to waste time on a board of a company that's not going to be a unicorn or not going to get an exit. So they sort of want to give you, accelerate the time to the answer. And, a lot of zeros are okay if you get one huge hit. And that's how when you do the math, that's how all funds work right now. They need one monster hit, right? Vinod Khosla will brag forever the rest of his life around his investment in OpenAI. It'll probably be one of the biggest single investment returns, right? Classic kind of today VC model. Not great for the entrepreneur, not great for the first-time entrepreneur. If you're a third-time entrepreneur, maybe, or you're already rich entrepreneur, maybe that model works for you, and you're more aligned.
Explain why it's worse for a first-time entrepreneur, because I completely agree with you, but I don't think it's obvious.
Because you are incented to get an answer fast, and sometimes that just takes time. But to get an answer fast, you can try a lot of things, often all at once, burn a lot of capital quickly, sort of run out of room maybe because you're burning that capital so quickly that you don't really kind of spend the time and take the patience to find where the product market fit is, find where the go-to-market strategies are that actually work. And by the way, you need both to work, right? You need like the product to have a product market fit. You need go-to-market to work. And by the way, you kind of need margins. You need to generate.
Especially in this environment.
Yeah, especially in this environment where after that first round or second round of capital, it's going to be harder to get that capital. But in general, I think, and the other reason I don't think it works is that, by the way, a single or a double works for the entrepreneur. Most entrepreneurs, if they're like me, which is I didn't have any money when I graduated from business school, so getting $1 million or $2 million as an outcome is life changing, obviously for almost anybody.
Except
Yeah,
the investors.
yeah, investors, and they're like, no, keep going, right? And we're not going to sell, like what, So I just think that if you have what you think in your, like, if you're deeply convicted as an entrepreneur, you have something that is a generational idea, or that's the new term, right, for unicorn. We went from unicorns to generational companies, right? That's part of the myth making. Oh, don't start a company, don't start a unicorn, start a generational company. OpenAI is obviously a generational company, as was Airbnb, or as is Airbnb, and so on. But there are so few of those. If for some reason you just so deeply convicted as an entrepreneur, you have that, or that's the only outcome you'll accept as a good outcome, and you don't care about making money and sort of buying your first house and taking care of your kids and family, and you care more about the generational outcome idea, then yeah, go align with the super VC and take a boatload of capital and find out, right, if you can pull that
Perpetually
off.
swing for the fences, or,
Swing
or,
for the
or
fences,
fail.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the way I'd prefer it would work, but I don't think yet venture capital would agree. I've seen some efforts. There's a guy named Tyler Tringa started a company called the Calm Fund, which I really sort of appreciated how he thought about it, and he's writing about it. He's closed the fund, and I hope he's going to kind of reinvent it and come back. But I don't think he could make the model work yet in terms of the model for him, the economic model for him as an investor. But he had this idea of investing more slowly along with the entrepreneur, and then waiting for the moment where a lot of capital is needed. There are moments where some companies need a bunch of capital. And at that moment, as an entrepreneur, you might want that capital for sure, right? To kind of pour on the gas, either the marketing or the technology, obviously, in terms of product development. In the case of AI, it's to fund either training or inference, right? There is no doubt that these are very capital intensive businesses potentially. But there are a lot of times where you don't need all that capital, and you just need to be kind of working away bit by bit, running experiments, finding a product market fit. But if you've got a bunch of capital in your back pocket and a board saying, let's go, 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 right? You're incented to spend that capital. That's what they want you to do. So you're hiring more executives. Now your culture's changing. Now you've got maybe your decision making slowing down. Maybe you're getting further away from the customer. All kinds of dysfunction can happen.
And maybe you still haven't even found true product
But
market
you
fit.
haven't. I guarantee
Yeah.
you. I mean,
Yeah.
well, OpenAI sort of has, but let's be clear, for OpenAI, they have to find enterprise product market fit to really, make this a win, I think. And so, today they're probably 2/3, 3/4 of their revenue, I think, by most estimates or intelligent guesses, are consumer and small business. Makes total sense to me. Consumers and small business want, the edge, right? They want the edge of AI, the productivity gain, that they're less concerned about risks and downsides, right? So you and I are using AI every day. So, that's good for now. But really, to grow into maybe $1 trillion valuation, they're going to need enterprise to foot most of the bill. And I would say they don't have enterprise product market fit yet. I'm sure they'll get it. They seem like really smart people, very committed, with lots of capital. They'll figure it out, and we're seeing early signs, right? We're seeing early signs of enterprise, so they're going long on AI. Not Microsoft, but like real businesses that aren't software companies. So assume they'll find it. But for a lot of other AI companies, they are absolutely going to crash on the reality of enterprise product market fit, how hard it is to really make that happen in a repeatable, frictionless way. Anybody can get 10 customers with the enterprise. Any good entrepreneur can get 1,000 consumer customers or 10 or 20 enterprise customers. Like, that to me is not a milestone worth celebrating, because that's just kind of table stakes for a good entrepreneur. Hustle your friends, hustle your family members, hustle your neighbors, your business network. You're going to find a few customers. That's validation, and you're going to learn from that. It's not product market fit.
I think that's a really interesting model, is to kind of crack open the VC nut and say, hey, you do need some capital to de-risk yourself while you're experimenting and trying to really find that match. And then, yes, there is a need for large capital injection, but at a particular time. It's when you have a clear plan of what you're going to spend it on. And the plan is not, I'm just going to keep experimenting and hopefully find something. And so I'm curious to follow kind of the Calm story and see if
Yes,
more
so am I.
VCs pivot in that direction.
Yeah, so am I. It feels like we have two models. Private equity, happy with 3x returns, over 10 years is kind of their model, right? That's a very successful private equity investor. And obviously some do better. And we have, of course, now the venture model, which is almost the opposite, right? We want 100x, probably over the same time frame, like a decade. but we just need one of those, right? Private equity guys don't like zeros. They just, they get them, but they really don't want them. They manage their portfolio not to get a zero, and VCs are completely happy to get zeros. And in some ways, that's better for them, right? Again, it allows them to focus their time on where they see the hits and not where people struggle, entrepreneurs struggle, and where it takes longer. So yeah, I haven't had any overnight successes. I'm 63. I still have time. I'm hopeful maybe that I've got one more idea or company in me that, hey, after 3 years, we're exiting, or after 5 years, we're exiting. We'll see. My next company, I don't think it'll be venture backed. Well, it's not currently venture backed. It's Machine and Partners. It's an AI development lab. So, we're self-funding with customers' money, meaning we're building AI apps for enterprise customers. I don't think that's the right model for venture capital anyway. And that is a good example of, we would not know how to use that money, even if, and we could raise it, obviously, right? We could, probably raise that money in a day. But
What's interesting about that problem to you? Why are you focusing on that right now?
yeah, a little bit what I said before. I think that most enterprise are not ready to buy SaaS, AI as SaaS, right? They buy SaaS today, they buy software that in that model today, obviously, but I don't think they're ready to buy AI that way. And I think a lot of recently funded, like the last couple of years, AI companies that have been funded as product companies, right? Software companies with that sort of idea of recurring revenue and sort of the same product sold, every time to different enterprise. I don't think it's going to work at this moment for most of those startups. I think they're going to go out of business or realize, oh shit, we're actually a services business. That some of the enterprise could buy some of the software, but they were going to have to deploy a lot of services around it to actually get this into the customer and sort of integrate it and working in a way that sort of generates the outcomes that the buyer wants. So I just think that I think this is
and break it down. I mean, what is it about? So you kind of said definitively that enterprise is not able to buy AI as SaaS, at least yet.
yeah.
Why?
Yeah, because they're not ready on their side. Like first of all, AI doesn't work the same way every time. AI doesn't behave like software unless you've really narrowed the use case. And listen, certainly some are doing this. Unless you've really narrowed the use case and built sort of an AI app that really is a single workflow app, and you're confident that those requirements in terms of that app working in a sort of production environment at the client side, that those requirements for sort of a production grade implementation are consistent across all clients, or most of your potential clients, right? Most of your prospects. Unless you got that sort of level of consistency for that pretty narrow use case. If you do, maybe you do have an enterprise AI app that's going to land and stick, right, across a lot of different clients, right? Because you need, not just product market fit around, this software will work and I can find people to buy it, but it's got to be repeatable in terms of sales and marketing go to market motion. So what I think is more likely is clients will say, yeah, that kind of works for us, but we just do it a little bit differently here. Right. Our workflow is a little different, or our data is not yet ready or in that format that, when you built your AI solution, you assumed, client's data would be in this shape, but our data is not in that shape. Right. Or our team doesn't work that way, or our team's distributed, or, whatever it might be. I think enterprises can be pretty unique on the inside, obviously, right? And so I just think that we're just not there yet. The maturity level of AI is almost accelerating kind of past the maturity level of enterprise to accept AI. We have a lot of anxiety about AI inside the workforce. We don't have anxiety about software, but AI is not software yet. And I think that's one of the mistakes entrepreneurs and frankly buyers are making as well. It's not software. It doesn't behave like software. It doesn't do one thing. Typically, right? It does a lot of things. And the anxiety.
What would you classify it as? I think that's a really helpful reframe. AI is not software, because it is, even if you do want to call it software, you have to call it something completely very different than the software that we're used to, which is it does that thing consistently all the time.
Right.
And even if it's a bug, it will always do that bug the same way if you run the trigger. So what do you consider AI to be then? Is it a service? Is it
I think it's an intelligent service is one way to think about it. That's probably sort of the Silicon Valley way to talk about it. You're provisioning an intelligent service into your workforce. In some cases, in a narrow way, and that's probably got in the short term the highest chance of success, because you have tried to presumably reinvent a workflow that was probably software powered today, and you're going to sort of reinvent it or re-implement it with as an AI intelligence service. I think the layman's way to think about it is it's a thought partner. You are deploying a thought partner to your workforce. Certainly when you deploy an LLM like GPT or Claude or Copilot, you're basically deploying a thought partner to either a 20 section is 30 people. So we've deployed 3 thought partners to 30 people, right? GPT, Claude, and Perplexity, and a few other AI tools. But in terms of sort of most of our AI usage at Section, again, small team, small company, is come with off-the-shelf LLM. So what I think I've deployed and what I'm paying for is what we're paying, investors are paying for, I guess, at Section, 20 grand a year. It's a great deal. Is about 3 thought partners for what are 6-figure annual salary employees, right? Everybody at Section makes a decent living, and so kind of a no-brainer from a business case standpoint for me. But that's what you're deploying. You're not deploying software, and so I think anxiety is high because for obvious reasons. Am I training my replacement? Is what some people might think. If I'm working with my thought partner, will my thought partner do my job? I also think we've just got some cultural sort of behaviors or attitudes around work that AI really challenge, right? Hard workers get rewarded. Well, if you're using AI, are you working less hard, right? Cheaters, don't cheat, right? We're telling kids at school, if you're using AI, you're cheating. The day they graduate from college and join the workforce, they're going to be smart if they use AI. Yet, the year before they were accused of cheating, by their school kind of thing. So, but is it okay to get help or do we want to own the work? Like, pride of ownership is sort of, again, a value we have certainly in our workforce in the US. We have a lot of sort of cultural values, I think, around work that AI really challenge. So there's anxiety and it's just like, this is different. And how should I kind of come to this as an individual? And I think enterprises are kind of not realizing the extent of these kind of challenges or changes when you deploy something like a GPT or Copilot.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because you do have the small business and individuals who kind of intuitively know how to use the AI tech, whereas enterprises have more of that big mover enterprise aspect. But I want to go back to something that you said of when it comes to a lot of the AI startups that currently exist, they're thinking more of it as a software product today. But what we're actually talking about is intelligent service. And you also have a lot of experience with pivoting, and you kind of have particular thoughts on
Yeah,
pivot fast, burn your bridges, and just
yeah.
go, go, go. So, what advice would you give to companies that maybe have found some type of resonance for the AI tooling or product that they have, but it's not really fully being sold or positioned and structured the right way to get it into doors and have mass
Yeah,
adoption?
I would almost rethink the next 12 months in terms of the business plan. I would rethink it as there are no kind of revenue milestones to hit. No board's going to like to hear that, but I'd sort of get yourself off the hook. If you've already sort of laid out a revenue forecast, it's one of the things that kills startups and certainly CEOs and management teams, because they lay out a revenue forecast and they probably did that because they had to raise the capital. It certainly maybe not seed, but certainly Series A and certainly Series B, C, right? And AI takes a lot of capital. We know that. So my guess is there's a lot of revenue forecasts out there and business plans that are pretty much fictional, but people start chasing them because it's just a really bad feeling to go to a board meeting every quarter and show that you're going to miss your revenue plan by 60 or 70%. It's just not fun, right? And that's what's going to happen, with AI companies. It already is. We know that. So unhook yourself from that and think about the next 12 months as a series of experiments to really understand what level of product market fit do I really have and with whom, and how extensible is it or not. So sort of really, for example, a deliberate experiment to say, if I've got product market fit with this type of doctor with an AI assistant, can I get product market fit with another type of doctor with the same product, right? Because inside a hospital, there's lots of different types of doctors. And if a hospital is going to deploy your technology, your AI technology, across a large number of users, you're going to have to be convinced, right, that your product will work for those different types of users. Otherwise, you're not selling to the hospital. You think you are, and you're telling your board you are, and you've got a revenue forecast based on selling to the hospital, but you're not. You're selling to one user group inside the hospital. But again, that might be okay if there's enough of them. but just be sort of really intentional around, well, what do I need to learn the next 12 months to kind of convince myself that these revenue forecasts are actually doable maybe in 3 to 5 years. They're not doable now. Like they're not. I'm just, again, I would tell every AI entrepreneur, you know, your plan's a delusion, and that's okay. Right? Don't beat yourself up on that. You needed to do that to raise the money, and 1 in 1,000 of these AI startups are going to hit that revenue plan. It's not going to be you. But again, that's
Yeah.
not because you're screwing up. You know, it's not because you're not executing well necessarily. It's probably because you need more time to find that product market fit. So just kind of be intentional around a lot of small experiments that are either product related, which is the product part of product market fit, or market related, which is the market part of product market fit, which is your go to market. So you got to do both at the same time, or say to yourself, I've got product fit. Now I need to be intentional about the next year after, or whatever that time frame is, and the next slug of capital. Well, again, set aside capital for that and run your, go to market tests. They're different. They have to be combined if you're going to say I have product market fit, right? So my marketing and sales motion, you got to run a whole bunch of experiments around that. When you put those two together and they kind of work, you're right. That's when we need probably more capital at that moment. Right.
For the market side of that equation, do these companies need to start fundamentally thinking about how to position and sell and communicate AI differently than this kind of productize, here's a SaaS tool,
Yeah, exactly.
subscribe, et cetera?
Yeah, that's what I would do today. I'd probably reframe my sales pitch to, if we could provision this intelligent service to you, Mr. Prospect, how would you use it? And what needs to be true inside your organization for this intelligent service, this app, this AI thing that we built to really have an impact for you, and really learn what's the reality on their side, right? So much of, when we pitch as entrepreneurs to prospects, we're just so product focused, right? It's our product. We're convinced, we have deep conviction it's amazing, that prospect needs it. And when we have a great price, that it's not about a price, it's not about like, and we'll solve all those objections kind of thing, but we're not really listening usually well enough to what has to be true on their side for this thing actually to get implemented and work. And I think AI has just got way more challenges today in terms of bringing that into an organization than typical, than upgrading the CRM. That's easy, right? I know what CRM is. I've got one today. You have a better one. You have a better one because it has AI in it. Oh, great. Okay. So, I think again, in certain use cases, more narrow use cases, you can do the kind of rip and replace or the upgrade strategy because you have a CRM. It's just a smarter, cheaper one because you put AI in it. I don't think we're talking about that as much as we're talking about sort of new AI services, new AI applications that haven't existed before. Those are hard for enterprise to buy. So I'd flip it to, I'm selling this intelligent service. What else will you need from me so I can bring this in and deploy this and run a pilot successfully? As an investor sitting on the other side of, with an AI company, I'd rather hear about in the first year, 2 or 3, you've got 30 pilots or 10 pilots, a decent number, not 2, but enough to know that it's representative of a large, kind of the world at large later. Pilots are running. And you're learning all that from pilots. Like I take that over, we've got 5 signed deals being pushed into implementation, probably too early, with kind of like what's going to happen, you know what I mean?
Right. We don't even know what we're building, let alone what we're selling. So
Yeah,
how can
but
we have a structured
right.
thing to sell?
But I kind of got closer to the revenue target, or one of our goals is to land Fortune 500 or whatever it is, and one of our goals is to land these kinds of customers, and so you made extraordinary efforts to go land that prospects and turn them into a customer. Maybe, but I kind of, at this moment, I'd rather hear about you're running again intentionally these pilots. And yeah, you want the customer to have skin in the game in a pilot. You got to be careful about pilots because unless there's skin in the game, they can just walk away and all that. So I want smart entrepreneurs running smart pilots, really learning, okay, what is needed on the customer side to get the business outcome they want, because they don't care about intelligent services and they care about outcomes.
Yeah, to flip over to that side, because you have section, right? And
Yep.
I think you framed it very well. You have Claude, you have ChatGPT, and you have Perplexity, and it's $20K for your 30 employees per year.
Yep.
And you frame it like that, which I don't think most people do. They say it's $20 a month per user, right? And you kind of think about it as this, oh, well, how valuable is the software tool and the subscription, et cetera. But when you just say 20K per year to have 3 thought partners for all your employees, well, now you start thinking in terms of annual costs and salaries. Well, what's the cost of a high-powered executive that I would hire, a COO or maybe a executive coach to kind of come in and work with all of these people, or get an
Absolutely.
analyst for every
Well,
employee, and
yeah.
you're framing it completely differently. So talk more about, are there different ways in which a company should consider, and again, maybe a startup should consider buying these different AI tools, thought partners, services?
For themselves.
Yes, for
Yeah.
themselves
Yeah.
internally.
I think, um, yeah, here's how I think about it. And that's one half of it. I think about it as if, no matter what size organization you are, run a pilot if you're big with enough people. If you're a startup, you don't need to run a pilot. If you're a startup, there's probably 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 or maybe 100 of you. I met a guy yesterday running a 150 person marketing services agency. And my advice was don't delay, roll out at least one, if not two LLMs off the shelf. Buy the enterprise version if you're really concerned about data security. So it is more expensive, or maybe buy GPT teams. I wasn't sure, frankly, what the cutoff in terms of number of employees for GPT teams. But if you want to add a layer of security maybe, and sort of control over the AI, or just let them reimburse for personal accounts kind of thing. Get that into everybody's hands. Some training. A manifesto about AI for an organization is not rules. It includes rules. That's important, right? What you can and can't do, what data you cannot, can and can't load up into your prompt when you're working with your thought partner. But it's also about how we think about AI, because the anxiety is so high, and people are not sure, is it right to be working with AI, and what will the boss think, and will I disclose I'm working with AI? It sounds simple, but it's important, right? So at Section, we absolutely, from day one, we said we're going to disclose to our customers when we're working with AI. We're going to actually have a slide in our decks, but we've always had one around credits, and we put the humans on that slide that worked on the project, and now we put the AI. It's kind of goofy, but it works in terms of telling us internally
It
that
gives you
it's
that
okay.
transparency.
Yeah, totally, right. And we do shout outs at all hands, AI shout outs. Again, kind of goofy. Like the first time we did it, like, what? I'm going to shout out Claude, right? Where's Claude? Is Claude here? But once you do that, right, it's like, okay, I get it. It's okay to work with AI. So bottoms up, give people LLMs off the shelf. That's the 20K a year kind of thing. And by the way, that could be specialized LLMs or AIs for specialized functions. So absolutely, we'll reimburse anybody who says, I want to buy 3 months or 6 months of a trial of some, AI tool, Lex.ai for writing or whatever it might be. And if you're in that function, you get more value from that AI tool. Absolutely give it a whirl. And if you want to come back and make the case you need it for the year or whatever, or the team needs it for the year, that's going to be a no-brainer at that point, right? And then top down. So I think entrepreneurs should think about it as everybody's got an AI, a little bit of training, and a manifesto, so they know you, from you as the leader, what you think about AI and how you want them to use it or not, right? And then at the same time, be intentional around finding 2 or 3 use cases. Obviously, software engineering, programming is one. Writing might be another. If you're in a content intensive startup, if you're in marketing services or you're an agency, something like that. Anything where you see, we call them big rocks, right? We talk about LLMs delivering small wins every day. That's the idea of an everyday thought partner for everybody in the organization. And then let's find some big rocks where if we fix that workflow, if we take that task that's so repetitive or so annoying or people don't like doing, and we can reinvent it with AI, maybe by building a GPT, right, or an AI bot or something like that, something pretty low code, no code, right? If we can, or just take an off the shelf AI like ChatGPT, and just sort of spec out how people should use it, write the prompts for them, kind of giving them the recipe or the playbook, then do that as well. So kind of what I call top down, bottom up. Top down is look at the work and find 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll find more over time, but find a few big rocks where, we're going to make everybody happier if we do that. Take that workflow and bring AI into it. So again, that the easy one would be, the whole team's using Cursor in terms of the engineering team. Or at Section, we write scripts, and we need to create lessons and case studies in terms of our educational experience. Those are driven by scripts. Scripts are hard to write. You partner with a subject matter expert, a human, who knows a topic, and you work with them for hours and hours and hours, over a period of months. Typically, you write a script. The script drives the video production. Back in the day, the video production was a human in a studio. We don't do that anymore. That's an avatar. That's the human trained avatar. So that instructor now has their avatar, and we film that and train the AI. We use a tool called HeyGen. So now we've taken that, and that wasn't miserable work, being in a studio with a talent. That was kind of fun, but it wasn't easy to do, and it was hard to schedule, and it was expensive. Now back to script writing. Our team doesn't love writing scripts. They're hard, right? And we tried a year ago, and that was our first sort of big rock. We thought if we could move script writing, at least to be assisted by AI, we would love it. The team would love it. We get some productivity gains and kind of offload a task that was pretty tough on us, right, in terms of a cognitive task. And it didn't work, and we were pretty disappointed, gave up, and said, okay, back to the old way, right? Humans are going to write scripts. But we had one person on our team, one of the youngest members of that team, saying, no, wait a minute, I don't like writing scripts, but I've got another 6 to write this year. I'm going to go back and try to figure this out. And she really, and actually a couple of people in this team really sort of dedicated themselves. And maybe the AI it did get better, in the intervening sort of 6-9 months, but they've got to a point now today where I'd say 60%, maybe 70%. So, V1, first draft of a script, is now written by AI. So same human subject matter expert, but now inserting AI into that workflow. So it took a lot of perseverance, and it took work and trial and error, but it was a big enough rock that if we could move it, it would the team would love it, kind of thing, right? So I think there's always examples of those, and you can bounce off them fast. I mean, you can try and you can get discouraged, and maybe that's the right thing, just set it aside, or maybe no, that's a big rock. If we fix this, meaning make it better with AI, we're going to get a productivity gain. And so it's worth persevering, playing around, right? Trying a different AI or something,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really wonderful story of both. Okay, so you have the bottom up, you have the top down, and then you almost start having this cultural shift of, you tried this experiment of script writing. It didn't work at first, but you had this cultural shift, or this mindset shift, of some people on that team said, no, I don't want to go back to the old way of doing it. Let me keep trying to work on this problem and see if I can improve it. So I'm curious, are there other cultural changes and other artifacts or belief changes, or just the way in which the organization problem solves now? Are there other changes that you're seeing with the adoption of bringing AI in as thought partners for the company?
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. I would say I'd start though with a foundational piece we had was we have a set of operating principles. You can call them, some people call them culture, values, beliefs. We call them operating principles at Section. So we have a set of operating principles, 7 of them, which lend themselves to AI, meaning some of those operating principles are things like think high-low, or experiment relentlessly, or data first.
What's the high-low one? I'm curious about that.
High-low is how I think anyone who works in a startup, frankly, anyone working in any company, I think this is one of the most valuable skills or abilities. You got to think high and work low at the same time, and you have to be able to switch between those two contexts, kind of on a dime, or immediately. Like, I want junior people, to be able to think high. I want smart people that can stop for a moment, not just think about the task in front of them, but they need to, but also just extend that timeline 6-12 months. That's thinking high. Right? Thinking high is a longer timeline. Thinking high is what else could happen if, right? Unintended consequences, stuff like that, right? And then low is like doing the grunt work, right? And I want executives to, they all think they want to think, they all think they're good at thinking high, and I assume most of them are. I want them to work low. We're a startup. So yeah, you can figure out the go-to-market strategy, but then you got to write the press release, right? Or edit the press release, or whatever it is, right? So when you think about those operating principles, and so I'd say first, take a step back as a leader and look at your operating principles or your cultural values as they are today. And I don't mean values like we respect others, or they're fine, they're undifferentiated, and don't get me started about values. But I think operating principles, whether they're written down or not, you have a way of working at your organization. And do those, as they are today, support the introduction of an intelligence service, of an AI thought partner? Hopefully they do. And if not, you might want to adjust even some of your operating principles to make sure that they're kind of inclusive of people working with AI. So that's kind of, I think, a first step. And then it is making these cultural changes, basically the change management kind of, tips and tricks that you need to do. You need to find early adopters. At Section, it was me. And for 6 months, and let's be clear. So for this first 6 months, this is a year and a half ago now, 18 months ago, I was the AI guy. And I got into AI because I'm old and I realized I needed a cognitive edge. And so when I started playing with 3.5 and then obviously 4, really like, whoa, I'm like, okay, this is going to be I want to keep working for 10 more years, right? Call me crazy, but I like doing this. So I thought, okay, AI is going to be a way I can keep working. I work in Silicon Valley. I'm 63. I'm going to be working when I'm 70. I need a way to kind of keep my edge. And I thought AI is going to help me. But for the first 6 months, no one else at Section was interested, quite frankly.
What do you ascribe that difference in approach to it? Because you mentioned earlier, many people look at AI and almost feel, okay, this could replace me. You look at it and say, oh, this is a way I can be competitive and get an edge on competition.
Yeah, it's like anything. It's a matter of perspective. I'm old. I'm gonna get replaced. Like I live and work in the most ageist place, or one of the most ageist, kind of work environments, in America or in the world, Silicon Valley. You apparently have to be 26 and wearing a hoodie, and a baseball cap to be smart. So yeah, like my perspective was, you know, they're pushing me out anyway. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it could only upside for me, right? And yeah, the board could fire me, and that's happened to me before. But my team can, not really, right? But for most of us, again, as I said earlier, right, there's a lot of anxiety around our jobs combined with I've never worked this way. What is this? And there's a third thing going on, which is I'm really good at this. And when I go play with AI, it's not very good at what I'm very good at. And I'm really pretty intolerant at this moment, at this point, when people say that. Like, I'm a great writer and AI can't help me write. Well, no shit. You're a great writer. You know, like, why are you trying to use AI? Why are you trying to be like, is AI supposed to impress you as a great writer because you're a great writer? No, I don't think so. Right. But he's not a very good writer. And his investment memo or his deck or his whatever could be better. And so he's the one should be using AI, or she's just starting out in her programming career, and so Cursor or GitHub Copilot's going to help her. That's great. She'll accelerate faster, and maybe get your job, right? Because you don't want to use AI kind of thing. So yeah, I think that a lot of people come at AI also from the wrong perspective, which is, well, it's not as good as me at what I do really well. We all have strong muscles. We all have really well developed muscles, and likely AI today is not going to help that muscle as much, right? We all have underdeveloped or weak muscles. That's where we should think about our thought partner, right? Our AI is, where's my muscle weak, right? We all have biases. AI has no biases. It has some biases for sure in the training data, but in terms of making business decisions, right? AI doesn't have a lot of bias really, right? It doesn't really have blind spots. AI doesn't forget about things. You have to prompt it well. And so, you are steering, but, you really, as a thought partner, as a kind of a co-intelligence, AI is pretty powerful. And so anyway, that's a little bit around, you got to break that stuff down early and then get people to find their moment of aha. And the aha is either some really cool demo. That's the notebook LM demo, right? Everybody's going crazy about that. Yeah, that is like, whoa, right? But more likely it's some little task or some decision where the employee is struggling or could use a little help and they get an assist from AI. Doesn't have to be a huge assist. Can be a small one because you get it so time efficiently. Once you've gone up the learning curve, right, and you know how to actually work with your AI, you're going to get that assist pretty time efficiently, right, with not much friction. That's when I think people, kind of change their perspective and go, okay, yeah, this thing could help me. And again, a 5 or 10% gain in a year, that should be enough for CFOs. Listen, we'll see if that turns into time. Does time savings turn into productivity gains? Do productivity gains turn into business outcomes? We're a long way from ever having that data, right? And so I'm mostly sympathetic with CFOs in large organizations who say, I've got 20,000 employees. This AI bill is $5 million. So that's not nothing, right? I got something else, some other project has to be canceled, or they have to go cancel a bunch of SaaS contracts out of my budget to pay for the 5 million to put an LM into everybody's hands, right? And by the way, time savings doesn't always equal productivity gains. We know that. Email was supposed to save us a bunch of time, and now we spend a ton of time, trying to get to, zero inbox. So I just think that it's fair to say, in larger organizations, it's going to take a while to actually get definitive kind of data. Intuitively, it makes sense to all of us. I think if you use AI, that yeah, there's certainly time savings here. They should be converted into productivity gains, and that should end up with business outcomes that are good. In a startup, I think it's clear. I've told my board we're going to get a 20% across the company productivity gain within 12 months, if not
How
more.
are you going to measure that? How are you going to track that,
Yeah,
KPI that, et
yeah,
cetera?
yeah. I knew you were going to ask. Great question. And by the way, our board asked. That was the first question one of our board members asked. And he's like a legit world-class board member on several kind of Fortune 500 boards. He's like, okay, Greg, I'd buy that, but like, how are you going to measure that? It's hard, honestly. I'd say a combination of employee surveys. We're just going to ask employees. Surveys could be either a survey or it's just, hey, let's talk to employees anecdotally kind of thing. That's one. And the way we ask that is, what other tasks are you now doing that you weren't doing before? You can ask people, are you saving time? They're going to say yes, right? But what's the evidence of you saving time? Well, I get to walk the dog more. That's evidence. They may not want to tell you that, right? But you can be more efficient and get another hour to go walk your dog. Okay, maybe not what I wanted since I'm paying for the AI, but that is an outcome that's going to happen, right, for some people. But the other is
Yeah.
going to be, oh, I'm now doing this. I don't use that contractor anymore, or I'm taking on part of that role, and that other guy is giving me that work, and now he's doing something else, right? You can see work shift between the teams, likely because bandwidth is opening up. That's one way, right? You can look at just hiring, and so we intend to do that. Meaning, how much work are we doing at the end of this year? We know how many courses we ran, we know how many students we served, we know how many enterprise customers we closed. Like, we have our metrics in terms of how the business is operating, and we can just look at the headcount. So
Output per headcount. So
yeah, something
courses
like
done
that, or
per,
just
yeah.
and also kind of that feeling part. Are we feeling like we're at the edge of burned out and working too hard, which is often how we feel at Section, which is the life of a startup, certainly early stage startup? Or are we feeling like, no, we're not, we're not always like about to go underwater in terms of, kind of the workload. And if that's happening, that means either I've got too much staff, or, AI is probably helping.
Clearly you have thought deeply about all this.
Listen, one
Yeah.
of the reasons I've thought a lot about this, Elijah, is that, and sort of put this into practice and really kind of obsess about it some days, is this is coming fast. I don't think people realize. I think entrepreneurs do, more entrepreneurs do, but certainly in terms of sort of the workforce and or sort of the economy or kind of enterprise leadership, large companies. I don't think really most people realize how quickly this is coming in terms of the how intelligent the services are getting, and how much capacity is being built to provision these services, and frankly, how much Silicon Valley is all in. Meaning, it's going to be in all software, as you know. They want us addicted to it, and they want us addicted to it not because they want to, fix healthcare and cure cancer and fix education. I think entrepreneurs will make progress on all those challenges and a whole bunch more, which would be great for us and humanity. But Silicon Valley is doing it because they want to get richer.
Yeah.
This is a gold rush.
The incentives are aligned for more productivity equals more outcomes. So
Yeah, and
AI is the bet.
big tech has realized that this is the next $1 trillion sort of market segment, or kind of era of computing, right? Is intelligent services, and they're gonna go for it. So the fact that we are basically reviving the U.S. nuclear industry to power AI models, I think just kind of tells you where we're at, right? And that we've had to leave the U.S. To get capital because we're running out of capital. Now the Saudis are helping us fund this, right? We're all in, or Silicon Valley's all in, rather. And we know the playbook, right? The cost of inference has dropped 90% in the last year, as you know. So it's the playbook that's been run a bunch of times already, which is lower the price, use investor capital to do that, right? Subsidize, fund, in this case, fund the inference, get us addicted, get us so we can't live without it, and then they'll find a way to raise prices, and they'll find their business model. OpenAI leaked document around the fundraise was they thought they could raise the price of GPT to $44 a month, and my guess is probably,
Yeah.
it would double
Yeah.
my costs, and my 20 grand a year per section would go to 40 grand a year. I'm not going to blink. I'm going to say,
So still way less than an employee
yeah,
that
way less than an
is now
employee. I'm going
doing
to say to
multiple
my
functions.
CFO, I've got too much. I've got 30 other SaaS platforms. We use Monday and Airtable. Really? Like, could we get rid of one of those? Or whatever it is, right? So we'll find that money.
Yeah.
I'd say at Section today, maybe not every one of the 30, but I'd say we're pretty close to everybody saying, no, you can't take this away from me, right? That is sort of the ultimate product market fit test, right? How disappointed will you be if we turn this off? And I think in smaller companies, if I was an entrepreneur and I wasn't getting that answer from my team, if I managed a company or a team of 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 people, smaller team, and I wasn't getting an answer from my team about AI in a year, that's on you. I would say you're failing in terms of your job, in terms of deploying these kinds of services to your team, because your team will benefit and needs it, because they're probably overworked, because you're a small team trying to do a lot of stuff, right? And build an amazing product or whatever it is. And so yeah, that I think that's going to be on the leader, not on the AI.
Yeah, and kind of the manifesto, the direction, the leadership that is necessary with that. I want to close this out with, you have this wealth of experience. You've been in Silicon Valley for multiple decades and kind of multiple periods as well. You've sold a company to AOL. You've worked for Apple before it was cool. Talk about kind of the zeitgeist of Silicon Valley, of entrepreneurship, and the waves of technology that have come, past, evolved, versus where we are today and where we're going.
Wow. Okay. I think,
Loaded question.
yeah, well, just a lot there to unpack. Listen, where we're at today is this confluence of this, go big or go home investor mindset. We've already talked about that. So a lot of capital is available today for AI companies. So we're at this sort of moment where it's all in on AI. And for those companies, huge amounts of capital are sort of being made available. I would say for other ideas, certainly for a startup, it's already off the ground, making a little bit of progress. I know it's hard today to get capital because investors are distracted kind of by AI. But I think we're at this moment where the best and worst of Silicon Valley is at play, right? It's this go big or go home kind of on steroids, right? Like, let's give AI companies 100 million and then $500 million and then like 5 billion, right? So it's really, everything's on steroids, amped up. And what will that likely mean is there'll be even fewer winners, in part because AI is expensive and only a few can attract that amount of capital in the later stages in terms of their fundraising. And so I think that we're in an interesting moment in that we'll see where else entrepreneurs and therefore investors can generate returns. Because if we're dominated at the least the foundational level in terms of AI by just a few companies, OpenAI, obviously, Anthropic, presumably, Microsoft, and so on, where's the room left? And I think what's happening right now is like, wait a minute, like if you're building something that the foundational model is gonna offer, you're in their gun sights, right? That's going to be a problem. So I think there is a great moment now. Almost the flip side of that coin, with the one side is tons of money, a few companies, go big or go home, build a generational company kind of thing, right? The other side of that coin is, AI is accessible and cheap, right? And the APIs are pretty good and you can build with it. And so why not kind of go the other way? I would, as an entrepreneur, don't raise capital, right? Kind of bootstrap, or really sort of play with this stuff and try to imagine a world where intelligence services are free and your little part of the world you've redefined with a product or a service. And I think this is a great moment to build service businesses, and service businesses are great. I run into a lot of agencies that are $10 million in revenue, typically 10 to 15% EBITDA for service business, that's doing $10 million in revenue, 10 or 20, even 5 million, you can probably get 5 to 10% EBITDA, and one or two people own the company. That's pretty sweet. And I look back on my life, chasing these big wins and the roller coaster I had to go through, and the kind of pain and stress and all that. I've got 3 adult kids, and If they asked me today, I'd probably say, don't do what dad did, go build a service company, use AI, either as part of the service or just be an AI kind of native company in whatever you're doing, and sort of, find your way to 10, 20 customers, make a good living and kind of build from there. Listen, Elijah, I remember once driving home. The office was in San Francisco. This is my last company, first up. And I was driving home. We lived down in Palo Alto. So I was driving home on 280. It was probably 9 o'clock at night. I was usually the last to leave the office, not always, but often. And that was partly my management style, right? And setting a tone, and partly because we just had a lot of work to do. And I usually had a core team that would hang around and work that late. So at this point, probably driving home, I don't know, 8:30, 9 o'clock. And I remember saying to myself, okay, I think I can make this pivot work. This is the last one, and it's starting to work. I can see green shoots on this pivot. So if I really keep at this pace, if I keep this pace up, I can pull the pivot off, and the company can, kind of get to growth. And it might cost me my marriage, and that's going to be okay. I'm willing to pay that price. And I said to myself, I won't lose the kids, but if the marriage, that might go, and that's okay. Like, I need to do this, right? That's insane.
That's the Silicon Valley dream right there.
What was I thinking?
Yeah.
So I just think that, yeah, you got to, I think, disconnect yourself sometimes from that dream a little bit, and just remember what we're here for, and the cost of that. If you're trying to build a company or build a product, yeah, that's important. That can feel very personal and very mission, internally, but at what cost? Be careful. And I think you can build a $10 million a year services business and have a great life and send your kids to good schools and so on, and not ever have to make that decision, intentionally or not. Right? Sometimes it's just you just work that hard and you lose touch with the people you love.
Greg, this has been a phenomenal conversation. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Section, learn more about your new company, where should they go? How should they connect with you?
Yeah, gregshove.com is probably a good place to start, or just email me, greg@gregshove.com. I'd love to talk to you.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you check out this video right here. And if you really enjoyed it and you listened to the end, take 2 seconds and share the love so someone else might find it by clicking the thumbs up button and subscribing. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. But click that button.